Well, hello. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Jason Falls Show. That makes me your host, Jason Falls. Sorry about that. Can't do anything about it. Today on the program, Gavin Jocius is here. He and I are old colleagues from my CafePress days. He was then the general manager of the art division, which most people know as Canvas on Demand. I have an example. I have a sample right here. Here's your sample, Canvas on Demand. Oh, I guess I got to make my camera work, right? So this is my son, Grant. He's going to be embarrassed by this. For those of you watching on the LinkedIn live stream, if you're listening on the podcast, you'll have to go over to the YouTube channel to see this later. But this is an art canvas. So it's like the canvas an artist would buy, right, to put paint on. And I took this picture from an old, Canon Power Sure Shot or whatever it was. And this is Grant when he was about 2 years old down at Waterfront Park in Louisville, spraying himself in the face with water. And so this is what Canvas on Demand was. If you see the picture of my daughter, Katie, over my shoulder, that's also an art canvas. I have these things all over my house, largely because of Gavin and what his team did when we were there with the CafePresses. But he ran that division of CafePress until it was sold to Circle Graphics for millions of dollars. And then he ran that business for Circle Graphics for quite some time. He's now the founder and principal of a new venture called Riverwise Ventures, which is a search fund looking to acquire and manage e-commerce businesses. He knows a lot about maximizing the productivity of an e-commerce business. So we're going to dive deep into that, talk about how COVID-19 might change your approach in the near future, and all sorts of other things. Then I want to catch up on last week's technical debacle and let everyone know what I think happened. I don't really know what happened, but also know that we have rescheduled Jim Joseph's talk on the conscious marketer. So we want to check on that and make sure that everyone is aware that we'll make up for that episode. Tried like crazy to get it on the air last week and it just wouldn't work. So, and then I want to give you a little testimonial. It's not necessarily, here's what I want you to go do, but here's something I'm doing that you might want to do on how meditation is helping me through the stress of all this coronavirus isolation and quarantine stuff. It's also given me an idea I'd like to share with you. So we'll talk about a little bit about that later on in the show. But first, Switcher Studio is the software that allows me to do cool things on the video broadcast of the show, like put my name and title and where I work down below me there on the wonderful screen. It also allows me to do things like throw up graphics, have the ugly picture of me saying, look, I look like Orson Welles. And so now you can see on the camera me looking like Orson Welles. He's a little older in that picture than I am. But I can switch back and forth from different things, just like a television broadcast would. And I'm doing it from my iPad. So here's my iPad. If you're watching on the video broadcast here on LinkedIn, it's not only letting me live stream, but it's allowing me to choose different, cameras, just like I'm a director in a truck at a ball game or something. And you might be able to see there's Gavin up there waiting in the green room to get in. And if I hit that, he'll come up full screen and all that good stuff. And so that's what Switcher Studio does with your live streaming now more than ever in this era where we're having to work from home. We're having to do Zoom meetings, GoTo meetings, Slack calls, all that kind of stuff. If you need to do something that faces your customers and you need to make it look professional, more professional than some of these conferencing softwares can, switcherstudio.com is a place to go. There's a special URL, switcherstudio.com/falls. Make sure you use that URL. There you can get a free 2-week trial. After the trial, you can use the code FALLS and get 10% off your subscription for as long as you have it, which is ridiculous. But they're giving that to you for being a listener of the podcast and a viewer of the show here at the Jason Falls Show. 10% off for as long as you have it, as long as you don't cancel, forever. That's pretty amazing. Switcherstudio.com/falls. They make our live recordings of this very podcast look professional. Now let them do the same for your live streaming or recorded events. You can actually use it to record events and whatnot. When we get back to doing those in-person things, of course, you can do a lot virtually with it as well. Also, if you're dialing into the live recording of the podcast over on the LinkedIn's, let's see. I always have to say this is technology permitting, and today the technology seems to be permitting. Knock on wood. You can jump over and comment in the comment section and ask questions and interact with us directly on the show while we record this episode of the podcast. And so technology seems to be permitting today. I'm looking over here and I'm seeing Douglas Placco is here. He is a senior marketing associate. I don't know that I know Doug, but Doug, thank you for coming by. I guess we're connected on the LinkedIn's or you wouldn't be here. And there's probably some other people who are going to be floating in here. There's a couple of other people watching, but Doug's the first one who reacted. So as soon as people start commenting and whatnot, I'll be able to see that. And if you have questions for Gavin as we get into that conversation or questions of me as we do the show, we'll be happy to keep our eye on the comments and see that your questions are addressed. So if you're listening on the podcast after the fact and want to join us on Tuesday mornings, if you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll get that He's Live thing when we record. We normally do that at 8 a.m. Eastern, 5 a.m. Pacific on Tuesday mornings. And if you need help finding me on LinkedIn, you can go to jason.online/LinkedIn. Douglas says, we met via Cision. Okay, there you go. He's reminding me where we met. Thank you, Douglas. Milva McGee is also here. She's an adjunct instructor at Goodwin College. She says, good morning, Milva. And Milva's been doing some great content on the LinkedIn's lately. I've been seeing her and Facebook. I've been seeing her content fly by, and she's doing some good video content for people in this era of staying at home and trying to provide content for folks in what she does. And so she's been doing that lately, and she's been doing a great job. So good job, Milva, and thanks for stopping by. Good to see you here. I think I met her through one of our other guests and some guest podcast things I did with the names are escaping me. It'll come to me in a minute, but good to see you, Milva. So that's the technology is working today. Hopefully it will continue to do so. And I'm glad it is because we've got a really good guest with us today. Gavin Jocius is here. He's the founder and principal of Riverwise Ventures. They're a search fund looking to acquire and manage e-commerce businesses, but they also invest in promising startups with disruptive technology or services. He's here today to talk about some of his extensive knowledge and expertise in e-commerce. And Gavin and I go back quite a way. Gavin, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. I'll be honest, you threw me off guard with the Orson Welles comment. I'm a huge film buff, and so now it feels like a great honor to be chatting with the ghosts of one of the greatest filmmakers of all time. So I never made that connection, but now I can't stop thinking about it. So thanks.
Well, while you're saying that, I've got the picture back up on the video. I have a side-by-side comparison of me and Orson Welles. Someone pointed out that we looked alike. And so I did that just for fun on the show one week. And we do actually kind of look alike, which I don't know if I was proud or depressed by that, but yeah, so Orson Welles gets a complimentary mention from time to time on the show. Pardon me. Shoo. Okay, so I'll get into the Riverwise thing in a bit, but I really want to dive in with you today on e-commerce because we're at a really interesting point in history. People are quarantined. We don't know for how long. That might make you think that e-commerce is the only way to do business anymore, and everything is going to explode for all e-commerce businesses. But even they aren't altogether stable in a weird economy. So what types of businesses are thriving right now and which ones aren't? And then what can we as e-marketers do to make sure we're on the right side of that judgment?
Yeah, I'll say at least from our experience, one of the companies that we invested in is called Local Line, and they are like Shopify for local farmers. And this Black Swan event is something that no one really anticipated, but they've been able to help farmers transition to online sales, and farmers markets as well, where you can upload your produce, your price point, and then sell directly to distributors and or direct to consumer online. And, this is a situation where a company was doing quite well to begin with, but really was providing a service, in this type of market that was of value. And, from there it is, okay, what's your marketing strategy going to be? A lot of it's word of mouth, which is very fortunate, in the farming community, that a lot of the traffic has just been with great referrals from other farmers.
That I would imagine that business is taking off right now just because people need food and they need to trust their supply chain. And if they can get something more direct from farmers, then that's got to be booming for you. I'm assuming they're doing well.
Doing well for sure. And I think now it's just execution
Yeah.
and being smart about where you devote your resources. And it's that sort of 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle, focus on the 20% of effort that's going to give you 80% of your results. And a lot of it is making sure that your web platform can handle spikes in volume. It's hosted through AWS, so they can able to, update server instances as needed, and really making sure that it's fast and it's reliable, like all technology that we need right now.
That's great. He keeps the 80-20 numbers rounded because he knows I don't do math. So that's very kind of him. So how do you see the market playing out after this thing goes away? I mean, are we going to see consumers continue to be more e-commerce, home delivery, subscription services, further kind of killing retail? Or are we all just going to go back to the way we were with, the in real life businesses kind of coming back and being a bigger piece of the puzzle? How do you see this playing out?
My honest opinion is we don't know. And I think that it's probably wise to go into the situation with a sense of kind of humility and the ability to flex and bop and weave. I think the companies that have done well have been very entrepreneurial in spirit and able to, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. And I've seen some breweries doing curbside delivery and, being able to adjust with market conditions. I want to, caveat, I don't ever want to give any sort of investment advice. But I think my hope is that you'll see a recovery relatively quickly. But the key advice would be open to change, be willing to adjust, be nimble, experiment, fail quick, particularly when you're dealing with uncertainty. And I think that's just general good advice with any sort of entrepreneur, or particularly people in e-commerce, where e-commerce changes constantly. You need to sort of have part of your DNA is comfortable with change, comfortable with uncertainty, and adjusting accordingly.
Well, and how much more prepared for or maybe predictive of success are software folks and people who, like you, who have dealt with software for many years, going to be, because they understand, lean methodology, and they understand, those types of approaches to, short sprints and things of that nature to get places. If people don't understand, what that is, I think they're going to be at a disadvantage. What do you think?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up sprints. So our firm at Canvas On Demand, we had all in-house developers, and we were an agile dev shop. So we worked on 2-week sprints, and the agile methodology allows you to plan, but then also adjust within those sprints. And we started adopting 2-week sprints across our marketing team, across our creative team. It allows you to plan out, but then also be very responsive to when market conditions change. And we sold art, and so a lot of times the art would be very seasonal. And so we would have our marketing and creative team adjust to, all right, the color of the year from Pantone is now this. Okay, let's add it to the sprint, and let's put out a beautiful collection to sell for this new Pantone color of the year. So I think it's not only very firmly established within the development community of being, that agile methodology, but how do you adopt that to other, divisions that you run, so that you can be responsive in real time, I think is very important.
Yeah, it's challenging. And from an agency perspective, I know that, the development teams totally get agile and get the short sprints and whatnot. It's a little bit more difficult to adapt your account services or your creative and, sort of your media, your other traditional avenues to those types of attitudes and mentality. But, in the attempts that we've tried at Cornett and other places I've been, it starts to help your thinking, because you are definitely a little bit more nimble and able to, make, pivots and whatnot to get better faster.
Well, so, for us, we also found it very critical to align the dev team with our marketing, with our creative, so that everybody is at least the projects that we have within that sprint, all stakeholders are fully aligned with where we're going and what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, that's definitely a helpful way to do it. So you and I collaborated on some pretty fascinating case studies and some handsome revenues back in the day. I remember firing off Facebook flash sales of these art canvases that would drive 7 figures in a week and whatnot back in the day. Of course, the landscape's changed a bit and everything's a bit more competitive to get into those algorithms. But you helped the art division at CafePress to a $35 million acquisition, then doubled revenues in a new iteration of that business for Circle Graphics after the transition. Let's say somebody has an e-commerce business and they want to know what the 3 or 4 most important things for them to focus on in order to have that kind of growth and success. What would you say?
Quick correction, didn't double revenue, doubled earnings, which is still a great accomplishment. But yeah, it very successful. And a lot of that was, hey, having a great product. I think the one thing that was very helpful for us is that photo on canvas is a very ubiquitous product. Everyone has a cell phone. Everyone has, a cell phone that's loaded with photos. And yeah, the early days of, there you go. There it is. Good composition, good rule of thirds. You missed the mark a little bit, but yeah, it's a great shot. Well, shout out to the team that's still running it at Canvas On Demand, that now's the time to decorate your home office. And it's delivered right to your home. You can order it all on your cell phone. We make it easy for you. Got to put a plug in there. But yeah, the 3 things, honestly, it goes back to what I was saying about just agile. You have to have it in your DNA to willing to test and fail quick. I mean, when we first got into Facebook ads many, many years ago, it was before the single Facebook pixel. We were loading multiple different pixels within our ads. There was a lot of experimentation, and the first few times we failed miserably. And it wasn't until we, they made slight changes to lookalike audiences, that we got the creative right, that we got modifications to the lookalike audiences to really just figure out who the core demographic was to convert, and then also having our full customer service team in there to try to reply back to customer queries quickly and send these social signals. So that our ads would show up with a higher amount of organic reach, coupled with paid in people's news feeds. But then that started to all change as more advertisers came in, and it really is a function of supply and demand. And photo on canvas is a very competitive space. So we had to continue to look through other sources of growth. One that did quite well is geofencing. I'm sure your listeners know about it, but I'll give a quick background. A geofence is establishing a physical coordinate around a fence. That could be a stadium, it could be a conference center, and then using partners to target mobile devices within that geofence, so that they see mobile display ads and click on your website, fire off pixels, and then you can continue to market till you check out. I think that there's a huge amount of potential. The amount of targeted data that you can get to is pretty incredible. And then you form sort of these hypotheses about, okay, who would be in the market for our type of product? Where would they be? One of the ironies is that there's not a lot of people going to major sporting events and stuff right now.
Yeah.
So like we geofenced a Notre Dame homecoming football game to send them beautiful Notre Dame stadium art, and saw quite a bit of success there. But yeah, that's just another instance of, hey, we had a great channel that was working through us, very competitive through Facebook campaigns. It still is, but we had to look for other avenues of growth. And I think it just goes back to that mentality of be comfortable with change, be willing to do that, and experiment, fail quick.
So speaking of other avenues of growth, is there a world without Amazon as part of your e-commerce strategy today?
No, absolutely not. It is table stakes, and we went back and forth, and there was a lot of serious debate about whether or not our Amazon strategy was cannibalizing sales on our direct website. But it doesn't. I mean, it fully supports it. There's massive amount of trust with Amazon and Prime, and it's more lines in the water. So for us, we have sales on the direct website, sales through Amazon, sales through Wayfair, all different marketplaces, and it's your opportunity to reach more customers. Now, we try to have, incentivize folks to come to our direct website with some unique artwork that you can't find elsewhere. But every single, deal that I've been looking at from an acquisition standpoint has a pretty robust Amazon strategy.
Yeah. Scott Wagon jumped in here to ask a follow-up question on geofencing. He asked, what triggers an ad to play inside of geofence? Is it just they're opening their browser, or is there some other behavior that triggers that?
Yeah, so we partnered with Pitney Bowes, and they developed a platform called Spectrum Visual Insights. And so what they have is they essentially have a display network. So we assign a geofence with them. They basically, that when mobile devices enter that geofence, we then send our ads that they deploy through their ad network. So you log into Mashable, you log into CNN. If you happen to be within their display network and you were in that geofence, and we bid high enough on the display ad, they see it. If they click through, they come to our website. That fires off tracking pixels, and you can get them into a remarketing, either through dynamic remarketing through Facebook or Google.
Nice. Okay, so Amazon, affiliate marketing, influence marketing, online media, paid search, traditional advertising, public relations. What are your top 3 go-to channels for driving revenue or margin? And is the answer different between revenue and margin?
The answer is going to be that it depends on the product, depends on the situation, depends on what you're trying to accomplish. And I would say that all are important, but you really need to segment and understand. I'm a massive proponent of assisted conversion. So for Great Big Canvas, for instance, it's a considered purchase. It's large pieces of artwork that goes on your wall. And there can be up to 13, 14 touch points before someone converts. So it is, all right, top of funnel awareness is going to potentially be some, geofence display ads, some PR. I think my experience is don't necessarily rank them, but see how they interface with one another and influence. Because, for instance, the photo on canvas is a much more impulsive purchase. So that is, targeted Facebook ads, some branded search, and maybe email post transaction. That's just fewer touch points. So then you can weigh them differently.
I love that answer, because when you ask that of most marketers, brand managers, they'll say, well, my favorites are these, right? And it just goes to show you that there are so many people out there who potentially might be making marketing mistakes by picking, a couple of those channels and not looking at it more holistically.
I think you can write a PhD dissertation on it. I mean, we've traditionally were a last touch attribution shop and had models for days to attribute last touch revenue, but you're just missing so much, throughout the conversion cycle. And in some cases, some of your first touch channels are your most important, particularly if you're trying to drive primary demand that people haven't been exposed to your brand. So you really need to have kind of a weighted average across all the different key touch points that you have within your marketing arsenal.
And the frustrating point for me in explaining that to people and trying to implement it for the clients that I have is that the formula is always different, client to client, product to product, service to service. It's never the same, right?
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more, my man. It's a lot of times it's not the answer people want to hear. Like, what's the silver bullet? Well, if we had silver bullets, we'd be on our yachts right now,
Yeah.
quarantining with helicopters delivering our packages for us.
The silver bullet is working your ass off. That's what the silver bullet is.
I'll take that.
There you go. All right. So for the entrepreneurs out there who might be looking for investments in their startups, or even e-commerce businesses who are looking for an exit strategy, an acquisition, give us the lowdown on Riverwise and what you guys do and what you're looking for in potential investments or acquisitions.
Yeah. So from a search fund standpoint, and a search fund, for those who don't know, I mean, it is, you're looking for a business to acquire. Traditionally, a lot of it is, phone calls, trying to build proprietary deal flow of, companies that would be a good target to acquire. Our investment thesis is, with my background in e-commerce, we're looking for businesses that could benefit. We could bring value through, helping improve the marketing strategy. And then on the back end, ideally, some level of manufacturing. I've looked at a lot of companies that are fulfilled by Amazon, but we think we can add a lot of value basically with our, manufacturing background. If products are produced stateside and you have a facility, and that's, my comfort level. So it really is, what are e-commerce businesses out there that have solid presence, that have some good organic traffic, that, the website could, use some love and care and a good amount of, tweaking to get it mobile responsive. And like I said, ideally a product that is somewhat proprietary, not a lot of competition per se, that we can really just help grow and expand. Now, that may be the holy grail and a unicorn that's not out there, but you can always be hopeful. But for anybody, honestly, as of late, I found a great website. The name's not the greatest, to be honest, but it's called Empire Flippers, and it's basically a marketplace for buying and selling e-commerce businesses. I was very skeptical at first, to be honest, but I did my due diligence, and they have a fantastic, very dedicated team, and makes it very easy for anyone on the buy side to do due diligence, access to the Google Analytics account, their P&L. And then the great thing about, looking to acquire e-commerce businesses is if you use tools like SpyFu, Ahrefs, you can really pretty quickly get a sense of the health of, at the very least, their domain and their backlink strategy.
Yeah. Good stuff. So another question that is sort of, quarantine COVID-19 related. Have we reached a point yet where your idea of what you're looking for to invest in a startup, is your filter different today than it was 8 weeks ago? Has that changed yet, or are you still looking long term?
Yeah, the filters changed somewhat. I think that we was very, very active with searching, and I've kind of put the brakes on somewhat, partly because now my kids are out of school and my wife's a nurse. So, and I'm trying to homeschool like the rest of the parents out there. God bless you all, and God bless all the teachers. It ain't easy
No.
with an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. So it's keeping them occupied. So that's top on the list for the search fund, to be perfectly honest. But then, I think now it's like, slow it down. I think this is a chance to see, okay, can a company weather a storm? And it's a very, very challenging time, but it'll hopefully, you get a better sense as to whether or not a company can really be in it for the long term, and whether or not the product is of true, value. And I think from a valuation standpoint, obviously, it'll change things as well. So basically what I've done is it's just slowing it down slightly, continuing with the search, but being a little bit more pessimistic and cautious at this point. I think it's probably a wise approach.
So 8-year-old and a 5-year-old, wife's a nurse, God bless her too. And you're trying to run this, new venture, and yet you went back to business school. What the hell's wrong with you?
I just, pile it on. Just keep piling it on. I don't know.
Aren't you juggling enough?
I'm losing my mind. It's yeah. So with the executive MBA at Duke, I got another year left, and honestly, it came down to setting a schedule, sticking to it. If I think that's what I've learned most, even with this quarantine time, is be brutal about your schedule and stick to it, because it's pretty easy to go on a Tiger King Netflix flick binge, which I did, by the way.
Didn't we all?
Hammered through that bad boy in about 2 sittings.
I think we all had to watch that just to get all the memes, right? It's like it took me a couple of days to be like, who the hell is Carol Baskin? And then I had to go watch the show.
It's like the internet developed a new language, and I didn't know what that language was, so I had to get up to speed.
It's amazing. This power of Netflix. It's amazing. So it's kind of funny because I had a lot of friends who were like, you got to watch Tiger King. You got to watch Tiger King. And I watched it and I'm like, that's a Tuesday where I'm from. I mean, shit, I'm from Eastern Kentucky. These are my people, minus the Tigers.
God bless them. They're
it's amusing. It's amusing stuff. Oh well. So where can people find you on the interwebs, Gavin?
Yeah, so riverwise.net, LinkedIn as well, and I think those are the two best spots if someone wants to reach out and have questions or follow up. I love sharing. I love to geek out on all things marketing and entrepreneurship. But potential targets, if someone's there that has a successfully run e-commerce business, by all means check us out. And at the very least, I always love to, like I said, talk to smart and hardworking entrepreneurs, which I'm sure you have plenty of across your listenership.
Well, I'd like to think so. You like to talk to smart and successful entrepreneurs, and I also appreciate the fact you reserve time for me from time to time. So thank you for that. Gavin, thanks for coming around and hanging out with us today. Stay safe, and thanks for all your insights, man.
I will. Thanks, Jason.
Right. That, my friends, is Gavin Jocius and Riverwise Ventures. The link is there for them and for his LinkedIn in the comments section of the LinkedIn Live post right now. And then if you're listening on the podcast or watching on our relatively new YouTube recordings of the videos, we'll have those in the show notes over at jasonfalls.com. So you can check that out there. So good stuff. Gavin's a good guy and had a lot of fun working with him back in our CafePress days. So fun times. Milva McGee also gives a shout out to the substitute teachers out there. They're obviously in an awkward position where there's probably not a whole lot of substitute teaching going on in this. So good thoughts there, Milva. And certainly if you know a substitute teacher out there, you give them a nice pat on the back and thank them for doing what they do or did. And then keep in mind that some of them, that might be, how they earn their living or earn part of their living. So keep them in mind as you're thinking through all this. Lots of people thanking Gavin for participating in the conversation today, and hopefully all that information was useful for you. Okay, let's talk a little bit about last week. We did have kind of a false start to the show. We got started and then we had just one technical problem after another and it finally reached a point, which it never reaches this point with me, but I finally said, okay, stop. We're just going to throw this one out and we're going to start over. So for those of you who were really interested in hearing what Jim Joseph had to say about his Conscious Marketer, his new book coming out in May, we are actually going to have him on May 10th. So the week after his new book comes out, he's going to come back with us and we're going to start all over. I will tell you that I did change internet service providers prior to the last show, but I went from 50 megabits per second upload to 400 megabits per second upload. So my internet was working fine. His was having a little trouble at first, but nothing that would have prevented the show from going on. So it could have been there was a Switcher Studio hiccup. It could have been there was a LinkedIn hiccup. Something kicked the show off, which is normally not that big of a problem. It stinks for those of you who want to see the show live. But normally what I do in that situation, Switcher Studio keeps recording in the background, and I just kind of upload it and edit it together and make sure that it's all there at the end. And we put it on YouTube, and we also put the links to the podcast recording up. But for whatever reason, that day was the odds were against me. The gods were against me because the recording failed. So we recorded 27 minutes of about a 40-minute show, and the rest of it wasn't there. So it didn't make sense to put just a little bit of it up that we had. So I emailed Jim and said, man, can we just reschedule? Because today has been a nightmare. And, we did. And so he's going to come back with us at that point. So I'm looking forward to having him back on May 10th. I know you will be too. We had a good conversation. I just couldn't present it to you. So that stunk. Pardon me. I was about to cough there. Not that kind of cough. I'm good. But at any rate, so that's the Jim Joseph thing coming up on May 10th. Okay. The last thing I wanted to, now I am coughing. Last thing I wanted to share with you today was I have had a meditation practice and I don't mean like I have a practice where I teach people to meditate. I practice meditation. And I've done that, probably for about 5 years now. And I will go through spurts where I do it every day for a couple of months. And then, like going to the gym, I skip a day and then I skip 2 days and then I don't do it for a couple of weeks and then I pick it back up and that kind of thing. But this is one of the few things of self-care that I've done consistently over the years. And it's helped me out of, certain situations. I know not everybody is into meditation. Some people don't understand what it is. Some people don't do it or think it's hokey hippie bullshit. But I wanted to just kind of offer up a little testimonial of the last couple of weeks, because meditation has really kind of helped me. I mean, change the way I think about what's going on in the world today and be able to sort of get through it without having high blood pressure and a lot of stress and a lot of worry. And so I thought I'd at least share, my thoughts with you about that, because last week I took the week off of work to write my book. I had that PTO scheduled for a couple of months before the whole COVID-19 thing happened. And I'm thankful that I scheduled it when I did, because I was starting to get really overburdened with stress about work, because work got really busy. We had several clients that were smart and said, this is the time to market. We have to do this. This is when we need to push the accelerator down so that we can come out of this in good shape. So we got really busy at Cornett all of a sudden in a very good way. But I was trying to balance that with the world is closing in around us, right? I now know people who have COVID-19. I have friends of friends or friends who have had relatives that have passed away because of COVID-19. The circles are getting closer to my family and friends. And so when you're, hey, work is really busy and let's go market things on one hand, and then you take your mind away from that and realize that people could be dying, it's hard to focus on work when, we're in the middle of a pandemic. And so I was struggling with that really badly. And I went back and forth, and it was changing my mood. It was making me snap at people at work, even, virtually. And I knew that I needed the time off. So the time off came at a perfect opportunity. I could write in the book. I could do some things to try to clear my mind. Well, one of the things that I do to try to clear my mind, regardless, is meditate. Now, I learned to meditate using the Headspace app, which is available at headspace.com. And Andy Pudenholm, I believe, is the name of the gentleman who started it. And he had lots of tragedy in his life and then went off to Tibet and meditated with monks for several years and, figured out, how to, sort of control his thoughts and be a much more calm, peaceful person. And he came back and started teaching people how to do it. So I use the Headspace app, and it focuses on mindful meditation. And if you don't know anything about meditation, very quickly, let me just tell you what it is. It's probably not what you think it is if you've never looked into it. And believe me, I'm the last person who's going to follow some hokey hippie trend. I gave it a shot. It made me feel better the first time I did it. I did it a second, a third, and so on and so forth. And so that's how I developed a liking for it. Here's what all meditation is: mindfulness meditation. There's several different types. Mindfulness meditation is simply this: stop, breathe, check in with your body, make sure, just recognize. You don't have to do anything about it. So, oh, my neck hurts. Oh, I feel a little bloated. Just kind of go through your body, check and see where, what you feel, how you feel, recognize it. Just, oh, that's a fact. That's how I feel today. What you're doing when you stop and you take some deep breaths and you check in with yourself, what you're doing is you're clearing your mind. You're allowing the busy things that stress you out. Oh, I've got this deadline. Oh, my boss is up my rear end about this. Oh, I've got to figure out what to cook for the kids. All these things clutter our brains all day. And so when you stop, take a couple of deep breaths, just kind of do a scan through your body and say, okay, here's how I feel. You're intentionally pushing things out of your field of thought. So you come to a place where you are more settled, less distracted, more calm. And so you can meditate for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. The Headspace has guided meditations, and it's a modest subscription, $10 a month or $4 a month or whatever it is. I don't know what it is. It's not very much. And there's guided meditations in there for stress. You can do meditations to help you get to sleep at night, all this kind of stuff. So I recommend Headspace. It's not an endorsement, like a paid endorsement. I don't have a relationship with them other than I'm a customer. And so and when you get done with a meditation, and I've been doing them now in the mornings, and then if I get kind of stressed in the afternoon, I'll stop and do one in the afternoon, and then I do one in the evening. So I do it sometimes 3 times a day, more often than not once or twice. But I start my day off with a meditation. And what happens when you get done with a meditation, at least for me, is I feel lighter, which is hard to do when you're me. But I feel lighter. I feel less complicated with the world. I don't furrow my brow as much. I don't have the physical tension. And it kind of feels like, and this is a stretch, I think, for even for me to say, but it almost feels like you're high in a little bit, like a natural kind of, you have this like energy running through you that makes you feel better about taking on whatever's next, because your mind is clear. You've calmed yourself down. Your blood pressure's probably dropped a few points, and you just feel more confident in moving forward. Now, you can get deep into a meditation practice, and transcendental meditation and whatnot is a level deeper, where you get into meditating deeply, so much so that you get into your subconscious and you kind of almost are in a dream state when you're meditating. I've experimented and I'm studying those methods now, but even just the short, simple mindfulness meditations to clear your mind and calm yourself down help me, at least, and I think they could help you if you're interested in that type of thing, get through some of these, stressors that are now firing off in our brains in this time of being confined at home with our families, with an interesting, sort of conflict in work versus what's going on in the world, which I've been trying to deal with. And I found last week, really focusing on meditating, because I had time off, I spent more than 20 minutes in the mornings. I spent more than 20 minutes in the afternoons or evenings doing some more deep meditations to try to calm myself down and clear myself out. Prior to my time off, I was grumpy. I was snapping at people. I was angry. I didn't want to work. I went back to work yesterday with a fresh attitude, smile on my face, ready to, help, tackle the challenges that our clients have in front of them on their behalf or with them. And I feel really good about going back to work. I feel really good about the progress I'm making with my book and all sorts of other things. So it helps change what you define as what is stressful and what is not. It helps you clear your mind and focus on what you need to focus on without being distracted by all the busyness of other things. So that's how I have started to get through what's going on in the world with the stressors that we're facing today. I wanted to share that with you. If you think meditation is hokey hippie bullshit, okay, you're allowed to think that. You don't have to try it, but I wanted to share that with you so that you could, maybe have something new that you could try and explore. Headspace.com is easy to find. You can try the app. There's a couple of free meditations you can take to try it out. there's YouTube videos you can go and guided meditations out there you can try as well. But I would at least give it a shot, especially if you feel stressed, if the world we're in right now is upsetting you. It's a way to clear your mind and calm yourself down, and that can't hurt. So give that a shot. And by the way, last thing, just so you know, I don't normally wear T-shirts on the show. I try to look semi-professional, even though most of you know I'm nowhere close to even being semi-professional. But today I'm wearing my Louisville City purple on my shirt. I'll put my hat on later because today was going to be our home opener debut in our brand new Lynn Family Stadium. Our first home match in the new stadium was supposed to be tonight. So I'm joining my Lou City compatriots in just a symbol and recognition of the day we were supposed to be together for the first time in the new stadium. And so I am anticipating that we will be together soon, that we're going to get through this and be back to be able to enjoy our favorite team and our favorite sport in our brand new stadium, which is gorgeous as you drive by it. I just can't wait to get in there and enjoy a game. So that's why I'm wearing a T-shirt today. For those of you who have a sports team that you like, especially baseball or soccer, which would have been kicking off seasons last week or this week, pick a day and celebrate and get in the fan sections on the Facebooks and enjoy yourself. It'll distract you for a little bit and be a lot of fun. So there you go. All right. I think that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the Jason Falls Show. If next week on the show, Christoph Trapp will join us. He's a content marketing guy who preaches the gospel of authenticity. He's got a new book out called Content Performance Culture. It's all about building an organizational culture that enables content production and performance so you can get the most out of your blogs, your videos, your social posts, and beyond. So pretty useful stuff, that. Join us for the live recording of that show with the video stream on LinkedIn at 8 a.m. Eastern, 5 a.m. Pacific. If you can't join us live, the audio recording will hit the podcast feed later that morning. That's next Tuesday, April 14th, live on LinkedIn, or catch the show wherever you like on the podcast. I believe that's going to do it. That'll do it for this edition of the Jason Falls Show. If you liked the episode, share it with your networks or jump over and give us a review on the podcast network of choice. We certainly appreciate that. Look for me on the social networks. I'm at jason.online/whatever the network is, or just search for Jason Falls. I'm all over the place. Until next time, everyone, I will see you on the interwebs.